Hello, everybody. We are so happy to be welcoming Georgina today. And let me tell you a little bit about our guests. Actually, before that, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Dominique. I am the founder of Group Coaching HQ, and we lead conversations regularly around group coaching. And today, actually, our guest is really a fantastic expert in team coaching. So we're really delighted to have her to highlight some of the differences between group and team coaching. Georgina is the founder and principal of Team Coaching Studio, an organization dedicated to shaping the emerging field of team coaching and to developing masterful team coaches around the globe. Georgina has walked the walk as much as she talks the talk. She's an entrepreneur. She has built many successful companies during her career before becoming a coach in 1993. In her coaching practice, she specializes in coaching chief executives and senior leadership teams across industries, sectors, and geographies. She's also the author of Mastering the Art of Team Coaching, a comprehensive guide to unleashing the power, purpose, and potential in any team. She writes a regular column called Thinking Teams, and a practitioner at heart. She's a passionate advocate for the coaching profession. Georgina is accredited by the International Coaching Federation as a master certified coach, and there aren't many of those. She lives with her family in Winchester, UK, and we are really excited to have her here. Hi, Georgina. Did I forget anything?
Oh no, that was a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much, Dominique. And it's always interesting to listen to yourself being introduced because it sounds a bit grand. Basically, I'd summarize that as I'm really passionate about coaching in all forms, and as an ongoing learner, I've been really curious about my own development and how to support the development of others and the development of the profession. So group coaching and team coaching, I think, are at the vanguard of our profession. So this is very timely.
I absolutely agree. They are developing so fast, and there is so much out there. It can be really daunting, I think, and really intimidating for coaches to decide to actually start team or group coaching. And yet so many coaches choose to do it to expand their practice, but also you mentioned developing themselves. I think as coaches, we're always trying to grow, and moving into group or team coaching is another way for coaches to continue to grow. So
yes, continue to grow themselves and to evolve their practice. Because honestly,
absolutely.
Dominique, I believe that the next decade that individual coaching will reduce because organizers will redistribute their budgets to group and team coaching to get more impact for their investment. So I think it's a real credible business choice for coaches as well.
I absolutely agree. And for coaches who are not working in organizations, we work mostly. So this will be an interesting conversation because you work mostly in organization, and most of our coaches do not work in organizations. So it'll be great to see the differences. And I think for those coaches who don't work in organizations and who are building their own practice, whether they're life coaches, maybe health coaches, they will also be building their practice, impacting more clients, bringing their magic to more people in the world. So this is all very exciting. So before we really dive in, I think it'd be really helpful for everyone who's watching, listening, to really define our terms. So I'd love for you to give us your definition of team coaching.
Yeah, I believe that team coaching, and not dissimilar to individual coaching, but team coaching is about unleashing the potential of a team. And when we talk about the potential of a team, it's the potential of a collective, not as the sum of the individuals. So what can we do more together, achieve more together than we can alone? And that sounds like, fantastic concept, and potential is a word that coaches love. In reality, in my experience of both being a team member, being on teams, leading teams, and coaching teams, collaboration is really hard. It's way harder to be part of that collaboration to achieve collective goals, oftentimes, than it is individual goals. So both organizations and individuals can struggle to really leverage the power and potential of teams. And yet every organization that I've seen is structured into teams. Teams are the unit of work. So that's our common organizational design, but we struggle to make the most out of the situation.
Thank you, Georgina. And we'll go into those struggles in a second. I think what I'd like to highlight is what you shared here, that in team coaching, the team really is working towards a common goal, and the team is seen as a unit. And when the coach is actually coaching the team, the client is the team. It's not the individuals in the team. Whereas in group coaching, individuals are really working towards their own goals, and they're working together, and they're learning from each other's wisdom, each other's experiences. But truly, at the end of the session, their takeaway is an individual takeaway, and they're growing. Yeah. I like to say that they reflect together, but grow as an individual. Whereas in team coaching, they're reflecting together and growing as a team. So that's one of the biggest differences, I think, that I wanted to highlight today. So you mentioned actually, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm just thinking so in group coaching, what I'm hearing you say is the contract really is with the individual learner, but in support of and drawing on that collective wisdom. And I wonder, Dominique, whether you find that also the group that are learning, the group somehow grows and evolves.
100%, absolutely. And it's interesting actually to think about how, if we think about stages of group development, for example, if we take Tuckman's model or any other model, it's really interesting to watch how the group evolves, and the meta conversation in a way can be so rich as well when we bring attention to the group as to how they're evolving, how they're changing, how they're growing together as a unit. It becomes even more of a connected whole than it started with.
Yeah.
So really interesting, and I'm sure that's a similarity with team coaching.
Yeah, so that part is similar. That as a group of people work together over time and get to know each other, there's a forming of that group, a development of that group, and over time the capacity of that group can grow. We call it the containing, the space that the group's in and what it can focus on and achieve. And the difference is that the goals in group coaching are individual, the goals in team coaching are collective. And that's often, again, that's one of the things that sounds easy, having a common goal. But it's not easy for a group, a team of, say, 8 people to focus on and to even agree a collective set of goals. So that's all part of the work.
Right. And actually, I'm really curious and would love to hear from you. We talked about groups developing, and one of the normal stages that a group goes through is storming, right? That everybody's trying to work out what's going on, what's happening, what's my role in this group, and I don't agree with XYZ. And so I would love to hear from you how you actually, in a team coaching environment, begin to work with this and begin to work to help the team and support them to create that common goal and to create that unity of thinking and of working together.
Yeah, I'll happily speak about that, because I think it is an important part of team coaching. And sometimes people who work with teams in a team coaching capacity believe that the team should start out right at the beginning with a common goal. But if it's a team if it's a new team that is yet to form, then often members arrive as individuals. Yeah, they're more aware of I than they are of we at that stage. And until the I has a chance to settle in a sense of social anxiety of being in a group, in terms of what the leader's expectations are, the organization's expectations are, and also in terms of whether they want to be part of that team. They're not prepared to go yet into we. So the forming and going through storming is a stage before we can get to performing. And storming is the jostling that takes place for each individual to find their position as part of the psychological contract of becoming a we. And until we've gone through that, it's not the time to craft team goals. So team coaching doesn't necessarily start out with team goals. Depending on the stage of development that the team's at, they may need to go through the process of understanding I and of bumping elbows, of going through that storming conflict phase to really get to norming or even performing, at which point collective goals can be formed.
And what are some strategies or tools that you or your team uses in order to help each individual member become aware of the we, become aware of the collective?
Yeah, I expect it's similar to tools that many coaches use, tools which help an individual to both see and become aware of and express who they are. I quite like an exercise where I invite team members to tell their story, the story of who you are. And when I say tell a story, like a narrative, or if you're writing a book of your life, it's not all the details. It's really the golden thread. What's the meaning of your life so far? And that storytelling can be really, really powerful and really help us to understand what motivates someone, what has challenged them in their life, and what turns their the lights off. That's just one way of doing that. But no exercise or activity or team coaching session or workshop can do it, because we learn about people iteratively. And it's not something you do in an off-site or in a special team coaching session. Where we really learn about people is the moments that matter when we're working together as a team. So what happens when I've got a crucial deadline and I'm stuck and I'm struggling with technology, or I can't think straight, I can't get something through the goalpost, and you're my colleague Dominique, and can I call on you? Will you put down what you're working on to help me in service of the team? It's all those things that we don't know about each other, that we only learn through that process of storming. We learn about people's values and where their real commitment is and where their boundaries are. So exercises can facilitate that. One of the things we talked about briefly on LinkedIn was that in your article that you posted, you talked there about facilitation. And if it's all right with you, Dominique, I'd love to just talk a little bit about the difference between facilitation and coaching in a team.
Yes, I think that'd be really, really helpful.
Yeah. The reason for that is that they often get conflated. And a colleague of mine is conducting some research for one of the big professional bodies at the moment into what is team coaching. And he's finding what I found for years is that the moment a coach gets in front of a team, they usually actually turn into a facilitator. And often that's under the pressure to add value and perform, or because that's their frame of reference. That's what they've seen other people do. So a facilitator manages the process of an event and creates a space, but manages the process to get to an instrumental outcome. So those outcomes are predetermined. We want to get our vision, we want to get a team charter,
make a decision,
know
whatever.
each other. Yeah, exactly. And so the facilitator manages the process, brings exercises, brings tools, and processes the team through that. Sometimes expanding space for people to contribute, sometimes shutting that down to process through the experience more quickly. A coach invites the team to take responsibility for their process through creating awareness and inviting options. So what that might look like is a coach saying, I noticed this conversation seems to be going around in circles. Does it feel like that to you? And if the team says yes, then say, well, I wonder how you might resolve that, or how you might come to a decision or select a way forward. What experiment could you create to embed a way of working that would work for you?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, and I'm really happy that you bring this up, because this is something we also talk about in Group Coaching HQ with our trainees. And you mentioned the feeling of the coach that they have to perform and they have to be at the center of everything. And actually, what I've seen, and even at Medley, when the magic really happens in the group is when the coach is actually able to take a step back and let the group lead themselves, let the group coach each other, let the group understand how they're functioning. And I think the key that the key words that you highlighted here is the word responsibility. The responsibility falls on the group or on the team to create the container, to create everything, not on the coach to facilitate the whole conversation or yeah, I'm going to stop here, the whole conversation. It's really important, I think, that the group understands and takes ownership in their learning and in their growth. And this is something we really push to help coaches understand, because it's just like in one-on-one coaching, right? The responsibility is not on the coach to do the work. The responsibility is really the coach is there to support, to help dig, to explore, but not to actually do the work for the coachee. The coachee needs to be present and needs to be wanting to create their next steps. And I think it's the same thing with the group or a team.
Yeah, so an issue of responsibility and clarifying for the coach what the coach is responsible for and what the team or group is responsible for. And I think in one-to-one coaching, because it's a mature profession, that's clear. You know, most coaches would say, yeah, the client's responsible for the goals, the client's responsible for the agenda, I follow the client's agenda. But that frame, that real guiding mindset, can get lost in when working with groups and teams under that pressure. In teams, Dominique, you know, leadership is such an important issue. I think that's one of the differences with group coaching, that leadership must exist for teams to be effective. Now, it doesn't mean to say that a team has to have a leader, like one leader at the top. It may be leadership may be distributed across the team, like in a partnership, that sort of thing. But unless we're clear how leadership is going to work in terms of setting direction, making decisions, then the team will not function well. And that's often where we find challenges in a team. So when we facilitate, we're really leading. We're saying, follow me this way, and this is what we want you to do. So we're taking away from the team a key function that a team needs to be successful. So in that way, although the team is producing useful work whilst we're facilitating, we often unwittingly undermine the team's learning and growth capability. It's around preserving leadership responsibility where it needs to be kept.
That is so interesting. And actually, that's making me wonder, you talk about leadership. I'm wondering what you've seen as potential issues or storming moments in teams when perhaps a leader feels that they have to take responsibility because perhaps the team is not participating as much as expected, and so the leader feels the way we mentioned the coach might feel,
Yes.
that they have to step in and they have to be making decisions. And so I'm wondering if you see that often, and how you end up working through that with a leader.
Yeah, you see both the leader stepping in, sometimes too much, and also I see a lot of what I call the leadership void. In fact, I often see that more these days, perhaps as a result of many leaders going on leadership development courses where they're learning about servant leadership and a coaching style of leadership. They've almost lost their permission to offer to themselves, to offer direction or to make a decision. So one of the challenges if I get feedback from team members on team leadership, one of the challenges I get is the leader is too collaborative. Everything takes too long. Everything has to be decided by consensus. So when a team is forming, when a team is not mature in their norms and processes and people are feeling the way, it is the leader's role, or the role of leadership, to provide clear direction, both direction and how-tos, and then find a way over time to navigate through that storming phase. And the norming phase is the point where the team can hold the team's process, the team builds the container, the team can take responsibility for projects and actions. But what happens to the coaches when the leader's unsure and there's a leadership void? Team members can turn to the coach for direction. So many team coaches find themselves unwittingly, out of awareness, being treated as though they're the leader,
Right.
or the leader abdicating leadership and saying to the coach, "Well, I didn't come in there because I thought you would." Let's say I had one a couple of weeks ago where a team member was not behaving well as by their contract of how they're going to work together. So he was in a team meeting, but you could see he was responding to an email and not present at all to the team, and I let it play for a while, and then I shared what I was noticing and said, I'm imagining that you're filling in the email or something. I have the sense you're not present. What are others noticing? And later when I spoke with the leader, I said, how come you left that to me to do? And she said, well, it's your job as the coach, isn't it? And that was a moment to recontract and say, no, it's the role of leadership to establish the behaviors that are necessary in the team. I'm not the leader here. Right. I can hold up the light. I can raise awareness. So inviting leaders to lead, whether it's one leader or it's distributed leadership, is really all part of the work. Do you find something like that in group coaching? What's the similarity or the difference?
I think the similarity here is that many come in expecting that the coach will do the work, basically. And so it's really a question of, and you use the word contracting, it's really a question of helping each individual member, usually through a pre-call. I do that through a call before the group actually starts working together. It's really about educating and helping coaches understand what group coaching actually means and how it works, and that's the contract. So it's really helping them see, okay, as a coach, my role is not to be a leader. Coaching is about thought partnership, and this, in this context, this is also the case, even if we are in a group. So I think there are many similarities in that. If a group, at the beginning of the group's journey, there may be a moment where the group is very quiet, for example, and that's okay. And many coaches, especially newer coaches, might feel that they have to step in and they have to talk and they have to take the lead. and actually letting that be and letting the silence be and bring that up as something that perhaps we want to understand as a group, and how we're going to work through that as a group, because we have, maybe 3 months, 6 months together ahead, is where a lot of the value of that meta discussion happens.
Yeah. And I noticed you were talking about, you were saying it's letting that be and letting the silence be. And by the way you were using your hands there, sort of had the sense that you were talking about as an internal process, really, of letting it be. Is that where you were coming from?
I think so, and yes. Actually, I don't think so. I know so. yes, and I think it actually touches on something that I'd love to bring up. And I'm going to pause for 1 second to say I see the comments and the questions that are coming through, so I will bring those up in a few minutes. But I think what you observed, Georgina, is absolutely an internal process. And what I'd like to bring up is we see a lot of coaches coming to Group Coaching HQ really not feeling confident about being a group coach, and not feeling confident that they can create a wonderful experience for their groups. And so I'm wondering, I know you train a lot of coaches in the art of team coaching. And so I'd love to understand whether there is also that issue of confidence that comes up, and right. and how to help our trainees understand and accept that internal process of let me take a step back and let me sit with this silence for a while, because it's okay. It's not a bad thing.
It's very present in team coaches, internal anxiety. And one of my colleagues, Dr. Declan Woods, actually did some research on fear and anxiety in team coaching, the internal landscape of the coach. So the art of team coaching, mastery, which doesn't happen overnight. It takes thousands of hours of practice and reflection, but it's really about mastery of ourselves. It's not so much about accumulating tools and exercises and things to do with a team, which is often where people start, because it's our way of trying to control the environment by organizing and structuring. Whereas really the work on ourselves enables us to quieten down and be really present, and to be able to, what we call, sitting in the fire. So as we're present to conflict, we're present to feeling pulled into situations, we're present to others' anxieties, we can be with that. And it's definitely a skill, and we experience most team coaches carry that and have different anxieties and different ways of managing. Some of them are anxieties about, do I look good enough? Do I look like I'm professional? Do I look like I know what I'm doing? Some other anxieties are, can I cope with this? Can I hold this space? They're very different for each of us. So self-awareness and knowing what our own fears and triggers are, and what takes us out of presence, and working on those is a real a huge journey of growth for team coaches, and makes the biggest difference to your practice.
I think this is very, very similar to what we're seeing with our group coaching HQ trainees, and this is part of why we decided that in the training we do so much practice, and coaches actually coach each other and get feedback from each other, and just to have that safe environment. Because you mentioned, and I loved the way you said that, you said it takes thousands of hours of practice and reflection, and it truly does. And whilst we can't give thousands of hours, but just to get that practice and that reflection time, I think it allows coaches to process their their fears, their anxiety, and to understand that they are not there to perform, just as a one-on-one newer coach feels that they have to perform with their one-on-one coachee. It's not about performance. It's actually really about taking that step back.
And the desire to perform actually gets in the way. It's like a layer between us and the client, in this case the client's the team. And so the process of inner work and inner management is really valuable. And we're all in it, you know, it's a challenge for us all. So the Team Coaching Studio, we, as part of our programs, we do a lot of practice. It's at least half of every session or every module with feedback, but we really work on building a safe container for practice, because it's a vulnerable experience, especially practicing in front of peers.
Right.
Because you have a sense of being maybe observed more. So how do we hold that vulnerability and practice enough that when we're in the room with clients, we can be present in the moment, in the here and now.
I love that. I love that we came to the internal process in this discussion, because I think it's like everything else. It's so much of how we end up coaching comes from who we are and our own internal processes. So we do have a few questions, and I'd love to get to them. So I'm going to start with the bottom, well, not the bottom, but the last question that was asked, because it relates to what we just shared. And it says, how do you suggest someone starts to develop team coaching following from individual coaching? What does the starting small and allowing it to build over time look like?
Nice. I love that idea of starting small and allowing it to build over time, because sometimes you know, people read books and stuff on team coaching, including my own. You know, you can try to be given a template for what good looks like and start too big with more than you can hold. So I often encourage coaches to think about what they do in one-to-one coaching and translate that to team coaching. It won't give you everything, but it's a good starting point. So if you work with 6 sessions, let's say 6 2-hour sessions, what could you do in 6 2-hour sessions with a team? It doesn't have to be whole days. If you're starting with a client, where do you start? Do you have a chemistry meeting? Many coaches do, because they believe in the idea of fit and checking that I'm the right coach for you, as well as whether you're the right client for me. I recommend that's done with the team, because I see the team as the client. And oftentimes people do the chemistry meeting with the leader. They say, yeah, is the leader your client? Are you there to serve the leader? Are you there to serve the team? So, and then what do? Do you have a discovery phase? Do you do any kind of psychometrics or awareness creating activities, a discovery of who the person is or their history? How would that translate to working with a team? So what might that awareness raising phase be? How might you come to some learning goals? So one of the mistakes, personally, I think the mistakes that happen in team coaching is the coach's mind switches to focusing on performance goals. Personally, I think the performance goals are the domain of the team and team leadership. It's not where our lens is. They're the outputs. Our lens as a coach is on the inputs, the learning goals. So what are the learning goals for the team, and how might you create dialogue around that? And then take one goal at a time, as you might in one-to-one coaching, and work on that goal. So our goal is we need to learn how to make decisions better. We need to work out how to hold each other to account. We get distracted by the next shiny thing. We need to learn how to stay on track, whatever it is for that team. So keep it really simple, and less is more, and use your skills of building a relationship and trust as the ground before you go into the work too far.
Thank you for that. I think everything you shared is also what we advise for group coaching. And I think with group coaching, it's a little easier to go into because coaches can form their own groups. And so there isn't so much, well, there is a lot of pressure, of course, to feel that they are doing a good job. But I think when it's external to the workplace, it's a different type of pressure. But we also encourage our coaches to form their own little groups so that they can practice, just so that they can get confident.
Yes.
And I really appreciate what you shared about take what you do in your individual coaching practice and adapt it. There is so much that we can use. You mentioned, a lot of coaches tend to rely on the tools because it's a easier way to get the group to think together and to be together, and for the coach to actually take a step back. And perhaps that's not a bad way to start. Take some of the tools that you're using in your one-on-one coaching and see how they can adapt to your team or to your group, and then coach from that. It does give you a basis until you feel very confident in your group or team coaching abilities.
Lovely. So know your own learning goals. Begin with where you're at,
Right,
and then
right.
and then stretch your capacity to work more emergently and more in the here and now, and to follow the client's agenda. I don't expect to be able to do that straight away, first session overnight.
Right.
Yeah. I think they're real words of wisdom there, Dominique. That makes sense to me.
We have a few more questions, and I'd love to see if we can get to at least a couple of them. So
Okay.
let's see. I am going to go with here. Initial question to address is whether the collective is a team or a group. Okay, that's not a question, but yes, absolutely agree. We need to work out whether it's a team or a group. Are we working towards common goals, or are we working towards individual goals? We have a question here from Heather. Do you believe that actually group coaching serves the collective because they were drawn together unconsciously for the same thing in the end, or do all attendees get what they need and there is never a theme? So this is really focused on group coaching. I'll answer very quickly. I think that it is important when creating groups that are not teams that there is a common theme that brings the group together. I think in terms of the insights that individuals will have in terms of how their struggles, the way that they want to progress in their life, I think it'll be really important that they have a shared context. So I think they do come together because there is a shared context, and will be working towards very often similar individual goals.
What's an example, Dominique, of a shared context that you've worked with?
A lot of my groups have been focused on transition. So it might be someone who decided that they wanted to leave their job and they have no idea what's next. And they're in that moment of actually starting to understand what they want to do next. And so they have that shared context and experience of the loss of leaving behind whatever their previous career was, and the being lost and not knowing what's next for them. So that's one. It could be around the context of health, perhaps, and wanting to improve their health. It could, so there's so many different. It could be relationships, but just having that shared sort of goal. We have a great question here from Mark. Let me go to that, and then we just have a few more minutes, so I want to make sure that we answer as many as possible. What is your point of view on coaching the leader or team member as well as the team at the same time? Great question.
I love this question. It comes up all over the place. We have a response often at the team coaching studio, or a little conceptual model, which is self, team, and situation. It's actually pictured like a little Venn diagram. And that's because we're often asked these questions where the actual answer we want to give is it depends. And what does it depend on? So it depends on self. Do you have the psychological and professional capacity to be able to hold that many relationships? So if you've got a team of 12 people and a leader, let's say, that's a lot of relationships. And then you've got all the interrelationship between those people. So self, do you have the skill to hold the confidentiality boundaries and all that's involved for all the information that's shared at those levels? Situation, does the budget allow? Does the time allow? Yeah. And team, what does the team feel about coaching individuals? Is that something that they've asked for? So I'm a fan of it when situation, team, and myself are in alignment and support that. But I never approach a team coaching situation with a predetermined answer about what a program should look like. It's not, the program doesn't lead the work, it's what's the contract with the client that leads the design of the program. So I encourage people to think about it that way and to grow their own capacity. There's no doubt about it, if you're having individual conversations with the leader and the members, is way more complex, and we often have to work out how not to get triangulated into situations and to be invited to become the messenger of things that people don't want to share with each other. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Georgina. It's so much wisdom from you today. We are going to stop here. We are at time. We're so grateful for you joining us today. I would love for you to share, before we end the conversation, a little bit about the Team Coaching Studio, perhaps any training programs that you have that are coming up, or your book. What would you like to share with everyone?
Well, the Team Coaching Studio was formed to support the development of awesome team coaches around the world, because we believe that the world's problems today are so big, they cannot be solved by individual hero leaders. They're only going to be solved by greater collaboration within teams, across organizations, between organizations. So that's our purpose, is to create that. We offer a certificate in team coaching. There's a blended learning experience. There's a module 1 that people can do as a standalone, which is e-learning, and then the module 2 is come into the arena, as we call it, to practice. And for those who really want to professionalize their practice as a team coach, they go on to do a diploma in team coaching, a really comprehensive program. And then there's my book. I'll grab it off the shelf there. Mastering the Art of Team Coaching. That's on Amazon. There's also a Kindle version available, and an audio version will be available in a couple of weeks' time. This really lays out our approach to team coaching with a capital C, I would say. Really putting coaching at the heart rather than facilitation at the heart. Contact me on LinkedIn if you want more information, or join our community of over 500 team coaches around the globe. It's a free community for group wisdom, really, at a mass scale level. So connect with me, Georgina, at teamcoachingstudio.com, and I'll direct you to wherever you want to go in terms of what we offer. Thank you for asking, Dominique. I appreciate that.
Of course. And I've put all the links that you have shared with me in the comments. So if anyone would like to contact Georgina, your email, your LinkedIn, the Team Coaching Studio website, everything is in the comments. So everyone will find it easy to contact you. On our end, I love the similarities between our programs. Yeah. We are starting the Group Coaching HQ cohort in October. We our 12-week certification program in group coaching, and same thing. We have more than half of the sessions are really around practice and gaining feedback. So we're excited, really excited about that. The link is also in the comments. And we hope that we'll see many of you. Thank you so much, Georgina.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for making it so easy to have this dialogue with you today, Dominique. It's been a real pleasure, and I look forward to the next time.
Me too. Me too. Right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.